Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. We've all been there, haven't we? Someone you trusted, respected, or maybe even loved did something that hurt, not by accident, but with clear intent. It stings differently, doesn't it? It's not just about the action itself, but the knowledge that it was purposeful. We've all felt the sting of betrayal, the sharp pain that comes when someone chooses to hurt us intentionally. It's not the accidental slight or the careless word that cuts the deepest, it's the deliberate act, the decision made with awareness that leaves a lasting imprint. These moments, no matter how strong we are, have a way of bringing us to our knees. It's not easy to admit that someone has hurt us, is it? It feels like exposing a part of ourselves we'd rather keep hidden. There's a voice in the back of our minds that says, don't let them see you cry. Don't give them the satisfaction of knowing they got to you. But the truth is, hiding our pain doesn't make it disappear, it only buries it deeper, where it festers and grows. Vulnerability is often misunderstood. People think it's weakness, a crack in the armor we wear to face the world. But in reality, vulnerability is courage. It's standing in the middle of the storm and saying, this hurt me, this broke my trust, this made me question myself. It's admitting that we're human, that we feel deeply, and that we're affected by the actions of others. When we acknowledge our vulnerability, we open the door to healing. We give ourselves permission to process what's happened, to sit with our emotions without judgment or shame. It's uncomfortable, sometimes unbearably so, but it's also necessary. Because pretending we're fine when we're not doesn't make the pain go away. It just creates a facade, a brittle shell that will eventually crack under the weight of unaddressed hurt. Think about the moments in your life when you felt truly seen and understood. Chances are those moments didn't come from pretending everything was okay. They came from honesty, from sharing your struggles, your fears, your pain. They came from vulnerability. It's in those raw, unguarded moments that we connect with others and perhaps more importantly, with ourselves. Yet being vulnerable isn't just about sharing our pain with others, it's also about being honest with ourselves. It's about looking in the mirror and saying, yes, this hurt me. And that's okay. It's about resisting the urge to minimize our feelings or dismiss them as unimportant. Every emotion we experience is valid, and every tear we shed is part of our story. In a world that often values strength over sensitivity, vulnerability can feel like a rebellion. But it's not a rebellion against others, it's a rebellion against the idea that we have to carry our pain in silence. It's a declaration that we deserve to feel, to heal, and to be whole. When someone hurts us intentionally, our first instinct might be to shut down, to close ourselves off from the world. But vulnerability asks us to do the opposite. It asks us to lean into the discomfort, to explore the depth of our emotions, and to find the courage to acknowledge our pain. It's not easy, but it's powerful. Because when we embrace our vulnerability, we take the first step toward reclaiming our power and our peace. Emotional pain is one of the most universal experiences we share as human beings, yet it's also one of the least talked about. We're conditioned, almost from the moment we can speak, to hide our hurt. Be strong, they tell us. Don't let it get to you. Move on, and so we learn to suppress, to bottle up our emotions, to carry our wounds silently. But the truth is, emotional pain is as real, as significant, and as deserving of attention as any physical wound. When someone intentionally hurts us, it can feel like the ground beneath our feet has shifted. It's not just the action itself that wounds us, it's the implications. We start questioning everything. Why would they do this? Did I deserve it? Could I have prevented it? These thoughts spiral, feeding into the pain and amplifying it. And because so much of this happens internally, we often feel like we're the only ones struggling. But here's the reality. Every single person, no matter how composed or resilient they may seem, has felt the sting of emotional pain. It's a shared thread that runs through every life story, binding us in ways we often fail to recognize. The problem is that we don't talk about it. We don't say, I'm hurting. and it's okay to hurt instead, we hide it behind smiles, brush it off with humor, or dismiss it as weakness. This silence doesn't protect us, it isolates us. It creates the illusion that everyone else has it together, that we're somehow broken or incapable because we feel deeply. But feeling pain is not a sign of brokenness, it's a sign of humanity. It means you care, you connect, and you experience the world in a way that is uniquely yours. Imagine if we treated emotional pain the same way we treat physical pain. When someone breaks their arm, we don't tell them to get over it or stop being dramatic. We don't expect them to function as if nothing happened. Instead, we acknowledge the injury, provide care, and give them time to heal. Emotional pain deserves the same compassion and patience. The problem with denying or minimizing emotional pain is that it doesn't make the pain go away, it just pushes it underground. And what's buried doesn't disappear, it grows. It manifests in unexpected ways in anger and anxiety in relationships that falter because we've never learned to process or express what we feel. Normalizing emotional pain isn't about wallowing in it. It's about recognizing it, giving it space, and understanding that it's a natural response to being hurt. When someone hurts us intentionally, it's not just the immediate pain we feel. It's the layers of emotions that come with it: grief, betrayal, confusion, even shame. These emotions can feel overwhelming, like waves crashing over us with no end in sight. But when we accept that this is a normal human response, we can begin to navigate those waves rather than being swallowed by them. We live in a culture that often glorifies stoicism, that rewards people for toughing it out and penalizes them for being vulnerable. But what if we flip that script? What if we celebrated emotional honesty as much as we celebrate strength? What if we taught each other that it's okay to feel, to cry, to admit when we're not okay? What if we normalize the fact that emotional pain is not a sign of weakness, but a testament to our capacity to love, to care, and to be impacted by the world around us? Normalizing emotional pain also means removing the stigma around seeking help. Just as we go to a doctor when we're physically injured, there's no shame in seeking support when our hearts are aching. Whether it's talking to a friend, a therapist, or even writing down our thoughts, acknowledging our pain is the first step toward healing. It's important to remember that emotional pain doesn't follow a linear path. There's no set timeline for when you'll get over something, and there shouldn't be. Each person's journey is different, shaped by their experiences, their relationships, and their resilience. And that's okay. Just as we wouldn't expect a physical wound to heal overnight, we can't rush the healing of our hearts. When someone intentionally hurts us, it shakes our sense of safety and trust, not just in them, but sometimes in ourselves. It's easy to second guess our decisions, question our worth, and wonder why we allowed someone to have the power to harm us. In these moments of doubt and vulnerability, boundaries become not just a helpful tool, but a vital act of self-preservation and self-respect. Boundaries are often misunderstood. Some see them as walls we put up to keep people out, a way of shutting ourselves off from connection. But boundaries aren't about exclusion, they're about protection. They're not built to isolate us, they're created to safeguard our emotional, mental, and physical well-being. A boundary says, I value myself enough to set limits on what I will and will not accept. When someone hurts us intentionally, the absence of clear boundaries can leave us feeling exposed and powerless. Without boundaries, we're more likely to internalize the harm, to blame ourselves for someone else's actions, or to allow the cycle of hurt to continue. Setting boundaries is an act of reclaiming our agency. It's a way of saying, I cannot control what others do, but I can control how I respond and what I allow into my life. The beauty of boundaries is that they are deeply personal. They're not one size fits all. They're shaped by your values, experiences, and needs. For some, a boundary might mean creating distance from someone who has caused harm. For others, it might mean redefining the terms of a relationship or even walking away entirely. Boundaries are about finding what feels right for you, not what others think you should do. Creating boundaries can feel uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to setting them. There's a fear of being seen as cold, selfish, or unkind. But boundaries are not about punishing others, they're about prioritizing yourself. They're an expression of self-love, a way of affirming that your peace, happiness, and well-being matter. Consider this: when someone repeatedly oversteps a boundary, it's not just about the specific act, it's about the underlying message that your feelings and needs are secondary to theirs. By setting a boundary, you're countering that message. You're saying, my needs are valid, my emotions are important, and I deserve respect. Boundaries are not just for the people who hurt us, they're for everyone in our lives, including ourselves. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are the ones we need to enforce with ourselves. We need to learn to say no when we're tempted to overextend, to stop replaying painful scenarios in our minds, or to resist the urge to seek closure from someone who cannot provide it. It's also important to remember that boundaries are dynamic. They're not set in stone, and they can evolve as you grow and heal. What feels necessary today might look different tomorrow, and that's okay. The key is to remain in tune with yourself, to regularly check in and ask, what do I need to feel safe, respected, and whole? One of the most empowering aspects of boundaries is that they help you reclaim your sense of control. When someone intentionally hurts you, it can feel like they've taken something from you: your trust, your confidence, your peace of mind. Boundaries are a way of taking that power back. They allow you to decide what role, if any, that person will play in your life going forward. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you're shutting down or giving up on relationships. On the contrary, boundaries can strengthen relationships by creating clarity and mutual respect. They help you communicate your needs and expectations, reducing misunderstandings and resentment. And for those who cannot respect your boundaries, it becomes a clear indicator that their place in your life may need to be reconsidered. The beauty of boundaries is that they are deeply personal. They're not one size fits all. They're shaped by your values, experiences, and needs. For some, a boundary might mean creating distance from someone who has caused harm. For others, it might mean redefining the terms of a relationship or even walking away entirely. Boundaries are about finding what feels right for you, not what others think you should do. Creating boundaries can feel uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to setting them. There's a fear of being seen as cold, selfish, or unkind. But boundaries are not about punishing others, they're about prioritizing yourself. They're an expression of self-love, a way of affirming that your peace, happiness, and well-being matter. Consider this: when someone repeatedly oversteps a boundary, it's not just about the specific act, it's about the underlying message that your feelings and needs are secondary to theirs. By setting a boundary, you're countering that message. You're saying, my needs are valid, my emotions are important, and I deserve respect. Boundaries are not just for the people who hurt us, they're for everyone in our lives, including ourselves. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are the ones we need to enforce with ourselves. We need to learn to say no when we're tempted to overextend, to stop replaying painful scenarios in our minds, or to resist the urge to seek closure from someone who cannot provide it. It's also important to remember that boundaries are dynamic. They're not set in stone, and they can evolve as you grow and heal. What feels necessary today might look different tomorrow, and that's okay. The key is to remain in tune with yourself, to regularly check in and ask, what do I need to feel safe, respected, and whole? One of the most empowering aspects of boundaries is that they help you reclaim your sense of control. When someone intentionally hurts you, it can feel like they've taken something from you: your trust, your confidence, your peace of mind. Boundaries are a way of taking that power back. They allow you to decide what role, if any, that person will play in your life going forward. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you're shutting down or giving up on relationships. On the contrary, boundaries can strengthen relationships by creating clarity and mutual respect. They help you communicate your needs and expectations, reducing misunderstandings and resentment. And for those who cannot respect your boundaries, it becomes a clear indicator that their place in your life may need to be reconsidered. The act of enforcing boundaries is where true courage lies. It's one thing to decide what you need, it's another to communicate and uphold it, especially in the face of resistance. People who have benefited from your lack of boundaries may push back. They may try to guilt you, manipulate you, or challenge your decisions. But holding firm is a way of reinforcing to yourself that you are worthy of the respect and care you're asking for. Ultimately, boundaries are an essential part of healing and growth. They give you the space to process your pain, the freedom to move forward without fear of repeated harm, and the confidence to stand up for yourself. Boundaries are not a sign of weakness or fear. They are a testament to your strength, your self-awareness, and your commitment to living a life that honors your worth. Resilience is often described as the ability to bounce back after adversity, but it's so much more than that. It's not just about returning to where you were before, it's about transforming through the experience and coming out stronger, wiser, and more self-aware. When someone intentionally hurts us, the pain can feel overwhelming, like a weight too heavy to carry. But resilience is the quiet, persistent force that reminds us we can and will rise again, not in spite of the pain, but because of it. Resilience isn't something you're born with or something you either have or don't. It's a skill, a mindset, and a practice that grows with time, experience, and intention. It's forged in the fires of hardship, shaped by the choices we make when life feels its hardest. It's in the small decisions to keep going when we want to give up, to reach out when we feel alone, and to believe in a better future even when the present feels unbearable. When we think about resilience, we often focus on the visible triumphs, the person who overcame a great loss, rebuilt after failure, or found joy again after heartbreak. But the truth is, resilience isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's in the quiet moments, getting out of bed on a hard day, allowing yourself to feel without judgment, or choosing to try again when every fiber of your being wants to quit. Pain, especially the kind inflicted intentionally by others, has a way of shaking us to our core. It can make us question who we are, what we deserve, and what we're capable of. Resilience doesn't ask us to ignore that pain or pretend it doesn't exist. Instead, it invites us to confront it, to sit with it, and to let it teach us. Every challenge carries a lesson, and resilience is about uncovering those lessons, even when they're buried beneath layers of hurt and confusion. Building resilience begins with self-compassion. It's recognizing that it's okay to feel broken, to struggle, and to not have all the answers. So often we're our own harshest critics, expecting ourselves to move on quickly, to stay strong and act as though nothing happened. But resilience isn't about suppressing your emotions, it's about honoring them. It's about saying, this is hard, but I'm giving myself the grace and space to heal. Another cornerstone of resilience is perspective. Pain has a way of narrowing our focus, making it hard to see beyond the immediate hurt. It convinces us that this moment of suffering is all-encompassing and permanent. Resilience challenges that narrative. It reminds us that while pain is real and valid, it is not eternal. Life moves forward, and so can we. This doesn't mean minimizing our pain, but recognizing that it's one chapter in a much larger story. Resilience also thrives on connection. When someone hurts us intentionally, it's easy to retreat, to build walls and protect ourselves from further harm. But isolation often amplifies pain, leaving us trapped in our own thoughts and fears. Resilience asks us to lean on others not as a sign of weakness, but as a testament to our strength. Reaching out, sharing our struggles, and allowing others to support us are acts of courage that reinforce our capacity to heal. It's important to remember that resilience doesn't mean never falling apart. It's not about avoiding pain or pretending we're invincible. Resilient people feel deeply, hurt profoundly, and grieve fully. What sets them apart is their ability to keep moving forward, to pick up the pieces and rebuild, even when the path ahead is uncertain. Resilience is not the absence of struggle, it's the determination to rise from it. Diversity has a way of revealing who we are at our core. It strips away pretense, exposes vulnerabilities, and tests our limits, but it also offers an opportunity to redefine ourselves. Resilience is the process of taking what we've been through and using it to shape a stronger, more authentic version of ourselves. It's not about returning to who we were before the hurt. It's about becoming someone who is even more aligned with our values, our purpose, and our truth. Resilience is also about hope, not blind optimism or a refusal to acknowledge difficulty, but a deep-seated belief that growth is possible, even in the darkest moments. It's the faith that no matter how heavy the burden feels today, there is light on the other side. Hope fuels resilience, giving us the strength to take one more step, to try one more time, and to believe in ourselves even when doubt creeps in. Ultimately, resilience is a journey, not a destination. It's a process of learning, growing, and adapting, one step at a time. It's messy, nonlinear, and sometimes excruciatingly slow. But with each challenge we face, our capacity for resilience deepens. We discover strengths we didn't know we had, uncover resources we didn't realize we possessed, and emerge with a renewed sense of who we are and what we're capable of. Authenticity is one of the most powerful yet challenging qualities to embody, especially when we've been intentionally hurt. It's easy to retreat into a version of ourselves that feels safer, one that hides the rawness of our emotions, conforms to expectations, and protects us from further pain. But in doing so, we risk losing touch with the very essence of who we are. Encouraging authenticity means choosing to show up as our true selves, even when the world feels harsh and unforgiving. Being authentic doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean having all the answers, always knowing the right thing to say, or presenting an idealized version of ourselves. Authenticity is about embracing our imperfections, our struggles, and our humanity. It's saying, this is me, all of me, and I'm not going to apologize for it. It's an act of courage, especially in a society that often rewards conformity and punishes vulnerability. When someone intentionally hurts us, it's natural to question ourselves. We might wonder if we were too trusting, too open, or too naive. These doubts can lead us to hide parts of ourselves, to build walls and put on masks in an effort to prevent future pain. But authenticity reminds us that our true power lies in being who we are unapologetically. It challenges the idea that we need to change ourselves to be worthy of love, respect, and kindness. Encouraging authenticity begins with self-acceptance. It's about looking at ourselves, the good, the bad, and the messy, and saying, I am enough. This doesn't mean we stop striving for growth or improvement, rather. It means we start from a place of self-compassion. Authenticity flourishes when we give ourselves permission to be real, to be flawed, and to embrace our journey without shame. One of the barriers to authenticity is the fear of judgment. We worry about how others will perceive us if we let our true selves show. Will they think we're weak? Will they use our honesty against us? These fears are valid, especially if we've experienced betrayal or hurt in the past. But living authentically isn't about pleasing others. It's about being true to ourselves. It's about valuing our own voice, our own needs, and our own truth above the opinions of others. Authenticity also requires courage. It's not always easy to speak our truth, especially in moments of conflict or vulnerability. It can feel safer to stay silent, to go along with the crowd, or to suppress our feelings. But when we choose authenticity, we choose integrity. We choose to honor ourselves, even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient. When we embrace authenticity, we create space for deeper, more meaningful connections. It's difficult to build trust or intimacy on a foundation of pretense. By showing up as our true selves, we invite others to do the same. We create an environment where honesty is valued, where vulnerability is celebrated, and where relationships can thrive. Authenticity doesn't just benefit us, it enriches the lives of those around us. Being authentic also means embracing our emotions, even the ones that are difficult or painful. When someone intentionally hurts us, it's tempting to suppress our feelings, to act as if we're unaffected. But authenticity asks us to acknowledge what we're going through. It's okay to be angry, to feel betrayed, or to grieve. These emotions are part of our humanity, and they deserve to be felt and expressed. Authenticity doesn't mean oversharing or laying everything bare for the world to see. It's about discernment, about knowing when and how to share our truth in a way that feels right for us. It's about finding the balance between being open and maintaining our boundaries. Authenticity is not about exposing ourselves recklessly. It's about living in alignment with our values, our needs, and our truth. Encouraging authenticity also involves letting go of the need for approval. The reality is, not everyone will understand or accept us as we are, and that's okay. Authenticity is not about fitting into someone else's mold. It's about breaking free from it. It's about saying, I would rather be true to myself and misunderstood than false and accepted. In a world that often prioritizes appearances over substance, authenticity is a revolutionary act. It's a way of reclaiming our identity, our voice, and our power. It's about refusing to let the actions of others dictate who we are or how we show up in the world. Authenticity is a choice we make every day, a choice to live in alignment with our values, to honor our truth, and to celebrate the unique and irreplaceable individuals we are. And living authentically doesn't mean the hurt goes away, but it allows us to move through it with integrity and self-respect. It gives us the freedom to heal on our own terms, to grow into the fullest version of ourselves, and to create a life that reflects our deepest truths. Authenticity is not just about how we present ourselves to others, it's about how we relate to ourselves. It's about being honest with who we are, what we want, and what we need, even when it's difficult. Empowerment is the ultimate reclaiming of our strength, our voice, and our sense of self. When someone intentionally hurts us, it's not just the pain of their actions that stings, it's the feeling of powerlessness, the sense that they've taken something from us. Empowerment is the process of taking that power back, of standing firmly in who we are and what we deserve, despite what we've endured. Empowerment begins with recognizing that we are not defined by the actions of others. Their choices, their cruelty, their betrayal, these are reflections of them, not of us. Too often, we internalize the harm inflicted upon us, believing it says something about our worth. Empowerment rejects this notion entirely. It reminds us that we are whole, valuable, and deserving of respect, no matter how others have treated us. Part of empowerment is taking ownership of our narrative. When we've been hurt, it's easy to let the story become about what was done to us, to let the pain overshadow everything else. But we are not just the victims of our experiences, we are the authors of our lives. Empowerment is about reclaiming that authorship. It's about deciding how we will respond, how we will grow, and how we will move forward. Empowerment is not about denying the hurt or pretending it didn't happen. It's about using it as fuel for growth and transformation. Every wound, every setback, every betrayal carries within it the seeds of strength. Empowerment is about planting those seeds, nurturing them, and allowing them to blossom into something beautiful and resilient. It's about turning pain into purpose, hurt into healing, and struggle into strength. One of the most profound acts of empowerment is choosing to set boundaries and enforce them unapologetically. It's recognizing that we have the right to decide who has access to our energy, our time, and our hearts. Empowerment is saying, I deserve relationships that uplift me, environments that nurture me, and experiences that align with my values. It's about walking away from anything that diminishes us, no matter how difficult that choice may be. Empowerment also comes from recognizing our agency. When we've been hurt, it can feel like we're at the mercy of circumstances, as if we have no control over what happens next. But empowerment reminds us that we always have choices. We may not have chosen the pain, but we can choose how we respond to it. We can choose healing over bitterness, growth over stagnation, and hope over despair. Another facet of empowerment is self-belief. It's the quiet, unshakable confidence that we are capable of overcoming whatever challenges come our way. Empowerment is looking at the pieces of ourselves that feel broken and saying, I can rebuild, I can create something even stronger. It's trusting in our resilience, even when the path forward feels unclear. Empowerment isn't about pretending to be unaffected. It's about acknowledging the hurt and deciding that it will not define us. It's about refusing to let someone else's actions dictate our self-worth or the trajectory of our lives. Empowerment is standing tall in the face of adversity and declaring, I am more than this moment. I am more than what was done to me. Empowerment is also deeply rooted in self-love. It's about treating ourselves with the kindness, compassion, and respect we deserve. When we empower ourselves, we stop seeking validation from others and start finding it within. We recognize that our value is inherent, not contingent on how we are treated or perceived. Empowerment is about finding our voice and using it. It's speaking up for ourselves, advocating for our needs, and refusing to be silenced. It's about letting go of the fear of judgment and embracing the truth of who we are. Empowerment is standing in our authenticity and saying, this is me, and I will not shrink to make others comfortable. Empowerment also means embracing our capacity to create change. It's about recognizing that we are not passive participants in our lives, but active creators of our reality. Empowerment is the realization that we have the strength to shape our futures, to pursue our dreams, and to build lives that reflect our deepest desires and values. At its core, empowerment is about choice. It's the choice to heal, to grow, and to move forward. It's the choice to refuse to let pain hold us back. It's the choice to believe in ourselves, even when others have tried to tear us down. Empowerment is the ultimate declaration of our worth, our strength, and our ability to rise above anything that comes our way. As we navigate the complex landscape of being intentionally hurt, we find ourselves at a crossroads of choice between succumbing to the pain or rising above it. This journey is not easy, and it is certainly not linear, but it is a testament to the incredible strength and resilience that exists within each of us. Through vulnerability, we dare to embrace our emotions and own our experiences without shame. By normalizing emotional pain, we remind ourselves and others that to feel is to be human, and that healing is a journey, not a destination. Setting and honoring boundaries becomes an act of self-respect, a declaration that we are worthy of protection and care. Resilience propels us forward, teaching us that we can grow through adversity and emerge stronger than before. Authenticity allows us to reclaim our identity, to live aligned with our truth, and to build genuine, meaningful connections. And finally, empowerment becomes the ultimate gift. We give ourselves the recognition that no matter what has been done to us, we hold the power to define our own narrative, to rise above the hurt, and to create a future that reflects our worth, our strength, and our deepest desires. In this journey, we transform pain into purpose, hurt into healing, and adversity into a profound sense of self-awareness. We reclaim our power not by denying what has happened, but by choosing how we move forward. And as we do, we inspire not only ourselves, but those around us, showing that even in the face of intentional harm, we can rise, rebuild, and thrive.